Let's talk about farming, the backbone of rural America, the lifeblood of small towns and the heart of the nation's food supply. For generations, families have worked these fields, rising before dawn, braving the elements, and betting everything on the hope that this year's harvest will be enough. The image we hold is almost iconic. Rolling fields stretching to the horizon, red barns standing proud against the sky, and the golden light of sunrise painting a picture of abundance and promise. But that picture is being shredded by Trump's latest economic move, tariffs so aggressive they're devastating the very people who feed the nation. These aren't just numbers on a spreadsheet, they're real policies with real consequences, and the impact is being felt in every corner of rural America. These tariffs aren't just Wall Street drama, they're a direct hit on farmers, changing the rules overnight. Suddenly, the markets farmers have relied on for decades are closing their doors, and the prices for crops are plummeting. Imagine tending your crops for months, pouring your sweat and savings into the soil, only to have your biggest markets slammed shut by political games. The sense of betrayal is palpable. Farmers who once felt seen and valued now feel abandoned. Retaliation from trading partners means fields full of unsellable products, crops piling up in silos, and barns overflowing with what should have been a farmer's paycheck. The global market is slamming the door, and there's nowhere for these goods to go. And the timing couldn't be worse. Farmers are already reeling from floods that have drowned fields and droughts that have cracked the earth. Climate disasters are hitting harder and more often, leaving little room for error or extra hardship. Now, a self-inflicted trade war is piling on, creating a perfect storm of economic disaster. It's not just one problem, it's a cascade, with each new blow making it harder for rural families to survive. We've seen this before. Trump's first trade war tanked exports, leaving American grain and soybeans stranded while competitors filled the gap. The world moved on, and our farmers paid the price. The fallout was so severe, it forced a $32 billion taxpayer bailout just to keep farms afloat. But bailouts are a band-aid, not a cure. They don't fix broken markets or restore lost trust. Now the tariffs are harsher, the safety net's weaker, and the stakes even higher. Communities are gathering in town halls searching for answers but finding only more uncertainty. It's like watching someone who crashed their car once get back behind the wheel, blindfolded with rockets strapped on. The risks are greater and the consequences could be catastrophic. What could possibly go wrong? For the families who depend on these fields, the answer is everything. The uncertainty is suffocating, and the fear of losing it all is real. For rural America, the answer is everything. The storm isn't just on the horizon, it's already here, and its damage could last for generations. So, what exactly are these new tariffs, and why are they making headlines across the globe? Tariffs are essentially taxes placed on imported or exported goods, and they can have a massive impact on the flow of trade between countries. When a government imposes a tariff, it's not just a line on a spreadsheet. It's a decision that ripples through farms, factories, and families. Trump's plan calls for a 60% tariff on Chinese imports, and in retaliation, China is slapping a staggering 125% tariff on U.S. farm exports. That means American soybeans, corn, and pork, once staples in Chinese markets, are suddenly priced out, making them nearly impossible to sell overseas. These numbers aren't just statistics. They're a direct hit to the bottom line of American agriculture. This isn't just a tax. It's a neon sign telling China to buy from Brazil or Argentina instead. And that's exactly what's happening. Chinese buyers, eager to avoid the new tariffs, are turning to South America for their grain and meat. The result? U.S. farmers are left watching as their former customers shake hands with new suppliers. And it's not just China. Our other trading partners are hitting back too. Canada, for example, has slapped a 25% tariff on U.S. farm goods, making it even harder for American farmers to compete in markets that used to be reliable. This isn't negotiation, it's economic warfare, and the first casualties are American farmers. They're the ones feeling the pain, as prices drop and unsold crops pile up. For many, the future is suddenly uncertain. Once buyers switch to other countries, those markets are gone for a generation. It's not easy to win back trust or business after a trade war. International buyers want stability, and if they find it elsewhere, they're unlikely to return to the U.S. anytime soon. The recklessness is stunning. These tariffs were announced after crops were already planted, leaving farmers stuck with products they can't sell. Imagine investing months of labor and money, only to find out your market has vanished overnight. And it's not as simple as just switching crops. Farmers can't pivot to new products because of a tweet or a sudden policy change. Crop cycles take planning, investment, and time, none of which can be changed on a whim. Now, they're left with perishable goods and no buyers. The clock is ticking as vegetables rot and grain silos fill up, with no relief in sight. Every day that passes means more lost income and more uncertainty. It's strategic incompetence on a grand scale. Instead of careful planning and negotiation, we're seeing chaos and confusion, with farmers caught in the crossfire of political gamesmanship. The result? Lost markets, lost income, and a future that looks bleaker by the day. Farms that have been in families for generations are now at risk, and rural communities are feeling the strain. The boldness isn't genius, it's disaster. The promise of tough trade tactics has turned into a nightmare for those who feed the nation. And in the end, it's American farmers who pay the price, struggling to survive, watching their livelihoods slip away, and wondering if anyone in power is truly listening. For farmers, this isn't a policy debate, it's a daily crisis. The buyers are gone, contracts canceled, shipments rejected. The nightmare is real, fields full of crops but nowhere to send them. Even before this, 2/3 of rural bankers expected farm income to drop. Equipment sales have plummeted for nearly 2 years, proof the sector was already fragile. The tariffs weren't a nudge, they were a shove off a cliff. Now, farmers are forced to beg for bailouts they never wanted. Farming runs on tight margins and debt. If the harvest can't be sold, the debt remains. This is how family farms vanish in a single season. The entire agricultural ecosystem is at risk, from pork to dairy. The people promised protection are the ones being sacrificed. The pain doesn't stop at the farm gate, it ripples through every corner of rural America. When farmers can't spend, local businesses suffer. Dealerships, mechanics, diners all take a hit. Agriculture is the pillar of small towns. When it falls, everything else crumbles. Shuttered stores, shrinking tax bases, and young people fleeing for better prospects. This is how ghost towns are born. Trump's tax bill only makes it worse, slashing services like Medicaid and threatening rural hospitals. When hospitals close, jobs in healthcare vanish, accelerating decline. It's a 1-2 punch: economic hardship and stripped away services. The communities once called real America are now collateral damage in a political game. As the economy spirals, more people leave, services shrink, and the cycle worsens. Rural America is being hollowed out, by design. How are people reacting? With anger, protests, and in some cases, baffling loyalty? Farmers are furious, organizing, demanding change, watching their livelihoods disappear. Yet in places like Kansas, some politicians urge trust in Trump, even as disaster looms. This blind faith persists. Despite past pain, Trump still won big in farm counties. Some call the tariffs short-term pain for long-term gain, clinging to hope. But cracks are showing. Lifelong conservatives now regret their votes as reality bites. The promises are broken, and it's farmers left holding the bill. In a sane world, government would help those it's hurt. Instead, the Trump administration is slashing the very programs farmers need. Billions in conservation and climate funding are frozen or cut. Local USDA offices are gutted, leaving farmers with nowhere to turn for loans or disaster aid. The bailout fund that saved farmers last time, now on the chopping block. The new farm bill could ban direct payments to struggling farmers. The safety net is being ripped away just as the crisis deepens. It's political self-sabotage at its worst. The people who need help most are being abandoned. Think this is just a rural problem? It's easy to imagine that the struggles of farmers in small towns are far removed from your daily life. But the reality is much closer to home than you might think. The ripple effects of what's happening in America's heartland are about to hit every single one of us, right where it hurts most, our wallets. Think again, your grocery bill is about to skyrocket. The price hikes you're seeing at the checkout aren't just a fluke or a temporary blip. They're the direct result of a chain reaction set off by new tariffs and trade policies. Tariffs on imports mean staples like coffee, bananas, and avocados will cost more. These aren't luxury items, they're everyday essentials for millions of families. When the cost of these basics goes up, it squeezes household budgets everywhere. Every trip to the store, you'll see higher prices. Direct fallout from this trade war. It's not just a few cents here and there, it's dollars adding up week after week, month after month. Domestic food prices will rise too, as local farmers struggle to stay afloat and pass their increased costs on to consumers. As bankrupt farms shrink supply, the entire food chain is disrupted. Fewer farms mean less competition, and that means even higher prices for everyone. Less production means higher prices for bread, meat, milk, and eggs. This is a lose-lose-lose. Farmers lose markets, countries lose goods, and you pay more. Even foods grown here at home are getting more expensive, as supply chains tighten and costs rise across the board. The promise was protection for American jobs. Politicians said these policies would help our workers and our economy. Instead, it's pain for everyone. Families are forced to make tough choices at the checkout, cutting back on healthy foods or skipping meals just to make ends meet. Our food system is being crippled, with empty shelves and shuttered farms becoming more common sights in communities across the country. And families are left to foot the bill. The stress of rising costs is felt at every dinner table, as parents worry about how to provide for their children. The cost of a political talking point? It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet, it's real hardship for real people every single day. Thousands more per year for every family. Everyone loses, except the politicians who keep making promises while families pay the price. And the pain is just beginning. If nothing changes, the cost of putting food on the table will keep climbing, leaving more families struggling to get by. In every crisis, someone profits. And here, it's the corporate giants. A handful of companies control seeds, processing, and grocery sales. As family farms go bankrupt, corporations swoop in, buying land and assets for pennies. Price gouging becomes the norm, with companies blaming tariffs while raking in record profits. The food system grows more consolidated, competition shrinks, and prices rise. Antitrust enforcement could help, but the current administration is friendly to big business. The same people causing the crisis are letting corporations cash in. The result? More power for the few, less choice, and higher costs for everyone else. When the dust settles, what's left of American farming? Lost markets may never return. Buyers don't just switch back. The destruction of family farms accelerates, replaced by giant corporations. Less competition, higher prices, and a fragile food supply become the new normal. Our national security is at risk. A country that can't feed itself is vulnerable. America's agricultural strength is being dismantled by choice, not necessity. Farmers are squeezed by bad policy and corporate power. Consumers face higher prices and less security. This isn't just about tariffs. It's about the deliberate dismantling of a cornerstone of American life.